Hey, we're back. Sports Insider. That was our break. Let's go ahead and bring in our Cavaliers beat reporter, Chris Haynes, to talk about the NBA playoffs. Chris, how are you?
Guys, I'm doing fine, guys. We reached that time, point in time. I think everybody was waiting for this for a while, so I'm glad it's here.
And the Cavs gave you an overtime game last night to end of the season as well. So that was a little parting gift to the regular season. Cavs Celtics,
yeah,
Chris.
I would rather in that overtime period actually, see a couple stars playing in that time frame. But it was a good ending. I'll give it that. So yeah, I guess all is well.
Cavs Celtics, Chris. You had the slideshow up earlier this week with your pick, your preview. You think this is going to be a fairly easy series for the Cavaliers?
It should be. It definitely should be. You look at top to bottom talent. Celtics don't compare. They don't have three players on their roster by the name of LeBron James, Kevin Love, and Kyrie Irving. Experience-wise, Cleveland-Cavaliers trump the Celtics as well. So I really do think that if the Cavaliers are on top of their game, that they should take care of the Celtics with relative ease. I think a sweep is in. I think a sweep is what I'm predicting. And I think the Boston Celtics, they're a young team. They fight hard. They play hard from start to finish. I think they'll make some games close, but I think in the end, if the Cavaliers are really about their business, they should end this game in 4.
Chris, in your opinion, is this what the Cavs wanted to get their feet wet for the playoffs? Did they kind of force it into a Cleveland-Boston first-round matchup?
Well, they wouldn't say that. They definitely wouldn't, agree with that sentiment, Mr. Fedor. But, I think they did everything in their power to try to make sure they matched up with the Boston Celtics in the first round. And I understand why. They want to get a primer, get a tune-up, get everybody feel, get everybody feeling good about themselves heading into the next round if they were to just demolish the Celtics in this opening series. So, but that's the thing, when you're winning games, you're able to do certain things like that. And I know other teams, other coaches or management may complain about the tactics, but I believe if they were in the same scenario, they would do the same thing because they have the power to do so. So you can't knock them for that.
Best case scenario for Boston, Chris. How long can they actually extend the Cavaliers if things go their way?
If things go their way, they could get 5 games. That's it. They get one out of those games. I just don't think they have what it takes to outlast the Cavs, man. The Cavs have too many weapons, man. When you talk about how they spread the floor, they keep the defense spread. They keep them moving from left to right from majority of the 24-second shot clock. Then you got guys in J.R. Smith and Kevin Love who are out there just waiting for the catch and shoot opportunities, man. It's going to be a tough matchup for the Boston Celtics. They're a good story. They made the playoffs. I mean, it's not too much to rave about in the Eastern Conference, but hey, they made the playoffs. They got it to that point. Good story, but I think it's going to end relatively soon.
So they'll play 2 here in Cleveland, then 2 in Boston, and you think Cleveland, if it goes 5, they'll finish it off back here in Cleveland, correct?
That is correct. That is accurate.
All right, so when we talk about the Celtics, this is a team, Chris, that has won 9 of the last 10. They've got the best record in the Eastern Conference since February 2nd. They've got to do something well. They have to have some kind of advantage in this series against the Cavs. Where is it that they have the advantage in terms of the matchup?
The bench. They have a potent bench, man. They led the league in points per game. Off the bench, I believe around 42 points a game, man. That's tremendous offense. Isaiah Thomas, who I just voted for to be the 6th Man of the Year award, he's coming off giving you 17. You got Jared Sullinger, who can give you 8 to 10 a night. Kelly Olynyk, Jay Crowder. So they have a lot of guys who on any given night can get hot. That's what the Cavs don't have, even though they've upgraded. And Shumpert and Tristan Thompson is playing much more better as of late on the offensive end. But they still, Cavaliers, they rely heavily on their starters, and rightfully so. They one of the best starting 5 in the league. But that's where the Boston Celtics is going to make their mark. If they're going to, make some ground and put in a fight, their bench has to play well. And a bench may even have to step up and give them probably 50 a night. But they're more than capable of doing that. So that's their only hope, and that's their only advantage. Aside from that, it's not much more than that.
Chris, we've talked so much about LeBron James and Kyrie Irving and Kevin Love, the big 3 here in Cleveland. Give me your playoff X factor.
J.R. Smith. I think that guy, man, we've seen it, last week or so, 2 games of 8 threes. And this guy, he's just a guy who has no conscience. He's one of those guys that when he's in the playoffs, particularly, this is where this atmosphere is going to suit him because he doesn't have a conscience. He's going to be able to shoot. He's going to thrive in these intense environment type games, especially on the road. So when you got a guy like that who's like a Robert Horry type guy in the playoffs, and then you have a LeBron James, a facilitator who's going to find you when you're open and hot, yeah, that's a recipe for disaster for the opponent. So I think J.R. Smith is the X factor. I think he has the potential to have a huge postseason, and I think he can become this modern day Robert Horry type player in the playoffs.
Chris, looking ahead, the Bulls a potential second round matchup. How tough would they be for the Cavaliers?
They would be tough. They would be tough. I still think the Cavs, if I had to predict right now, I think the Cavs can take care of them in 6. But with that being said, each day that's going by, Derrick Rose is getting healthier and healthier. Confidence is growing. Athleticism is coming back. So at that time, I think the Bulls' plan and what they hope is that Derrick Rose can be close to 100% as possible, and to be able to give them, the Cavaliers a test, because right now, as the way the Cavs are playing and the way the conference is looking, they may have a cakewalk. But if the Bulls are on point, playing that physical style, everybody is relatively healthy. Jimmy Butler is playing. Now, I've seen Jimmy Butler, the games against the Cavs, he stunk it up.
Yep.
But it seems like everywhere else he's putting up 20 and playing good defense. But if it can get him to play consistently in that series, if it comes to that, I think Chicago will be a real threat, man. Maybe even push them to 7 or whatever the case may be. But I definitely think Chicago, as of right now, will be the favorite to come close to possibly knocking off the Cavs.
Chris, I think something that is not talked about enough, we always talk about the big picture here in Cleveland. If you're talking about the big picture, that means the NBA Finals, and that means certain teams that you're going to have to play against. If you flip it out to the Western Conference, if the Cavs play a 7-game series against Golden State, against Memphis, against San Antonio, against Houston, all of those teams from the West are going to have home court advantage over the Cavs.
Yeah, but I still would, out of all those teams, the only team on the Cavaliers that I would be intimidated by would be San Antonio, Memphis. I think Golden State, I love Golden State, and, I'm not going to reveal who I voted for MVP, but, you pretty much guess it right now. But I still think Golden State is too much of a perimeter-oriented team, and, past history has shown that they don't have, quite as much success in the playoffs. That can change because now the NBA is filled with perimeter-oriented teams, so that definitely can change. But I just think San Antonio, their experience, their inside-outside balance. Memphis, their experience, their inside-outside balance. I think those teams will be they will be a scare for the Cavaliers. Not to say the Cavs won't take them down, but I think they'll be a scare. But those are the Western Conference teams. I think they'll beat up on themselves, and I'm just not sure they're quite ready.
All right, Chris Haynes, our Cavaliers beat reporter, joining us. Chris, thanks for the time.
Anytime, guys. Take care.
All right, you mentioned the West, and you kind of look at how that bracket shakes out. Golden State actually ended up getting a pretty good draw as the 1 seed because they've got New Orleans, who's a good team, beatable. You look at their potential second-round matchup, Portland and Memphis. Portland is not the same team they were earlier in the year, especially with the Wesley Matthews injury. Memphis really scuffled in the second half. San Antonio, they've got a little bit of a meat grinder if they want to get to the Western Conference Finals.
See, that's funny because we've talked here on cleveland.com about which opponents we want the Cavs to avoid because there are certain matchups that just aren't in their favor in the Eastern Conference. And at the time, we wanted to avoid Indiana, and we wanted to maybe avoid Chicago because there's just those teams that are so difficult for you to get past. For Golden State, they wanted to avoid Los Angeles and San Antonio. The good thing is they won't have to go through both of them to get to the NBA Finals. So for Cavs fans that think Golden State's a little bit overrated, think that they would be an easier matchup in the NBA Finals, you might have gotten the path that they need to go through in order to get there.
Yeah, I don't know, though. Golden State didn't get to where they are by accident.
Beating teams by an average of 10 points. I don't think people understand that. Like, the things that the Cavs did in the second half of the season against teams, running away and hiding, Golden State did that every single night.
Cool. All right, let's switch gears. Let's talk Browns and bring in our Browns beat reporter, Mary Kay Cabot. And Mary Kay, the question on all of our minds, which combo is your favorite?
Of the uniforms. I'm sorry.
Yes.
You know what? I had not thought about that yet, but I might be an orange top, white pant guy.
Uh-oh.
Mary Kay, yes. That a girl. See, that's where I was leaning too, Mary Kay. I saw Dwayne Bowe looking big, physical, athletic, and I saw those uniforms, and I'm like, yeah, those pop. Let's wear those every single Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to say this. This is going to be heresy when I say this, but I don't love brown. I don't know. I mean, you know what? I really like the orange and the white together. I think that really pops. Now, the thing about the orange jersey is that will be their designated third jersey, and so they really will only be able to wear that 2 times. And I think that's really unfortunate. I love the orange. When you see it in person, it's very bright. I think it's going to look good on television. And I just think it has just a more of a modern feel to it.
All right, then we got to move on from the uniforms because this is just not right. Brown and orange, people. Brown tops, orange pants. That's the way to go. All right, Mary Kay. Mel Kiper had a mock draft last week that had the Browns going with Todd Gurley in the first round, and it sparked some discussion about would they really go running back with those picks? Why not? Why wouldn't they take a running back if Gurley's there or if Melvin Gordon's there?
Oh, boy, you know what? I go back to 2012 when I was against the Browns drafting Trent Richardson, and the reason why I felt very strongly about it then is the same reason why I feel about it now. Because you can get a really good one so much later that I just don't think that you should spend a first-round pick on a running back. Those picks are precious, and I think you have to get the positions that are tougher to land, that you can't get, generally you can't get a great pass rusher most of the time in the 4th round, but you can get a running back in the 4th round. You can get a running back in the 5th round. So I feel it's not that they're a dime a dozen, because I think there is a little bit of a paradigm shift in the NFL right now where people are starting to see the wisdom behind a really good power running game and how that makes an offense go. Even the passing offenses are relying more on the run these days, it seems. So I do understand that a good running game is important, but I do not feel like you need to get one in the first round. However, if they're bringing in Todd Gurley and Melvin Gordon, they obviously are thinking about those guys at 12 or 19, probably more 19. Or possibly they're looking at them with their 2nd round pick, or maybe in the event that they move back down from 19.
Mary Kay, the other position that so many people in this town are talking about, wide receiver, it's been a need for so long. If a guy like Kevin White and Amari Cooper both off the board before the Browns pick at number 12, do you think they feel strongly enough about Louisville's Devontae Parker to use a first-round pick on him, or do you think they would then go to a different position?
I think that Devontae Parker would be a strong candidate there at number 12, although I still do think that in a perfect world, I think that Ray Farmer would prefer to have a different position than wide receiver there. And my guess is that, if there were a great pass rusher there, that he would probably rather do something like that than a wide receiver. Even though he's not opposed to taking one in the first round, he's told us so many times that he doesn't think an elite wide receiver is necessary to win a championship. So although I think Devontae Parker will strongly be considered there, I do think that Ray Farmer would prefer to do something else if he could. So it's definitely something to keep an eye on. I just tweeted out just a second ago that Amari Cooper has made a pre-draft visit to the Browns. And of course, he probably will be gone by number 12, but he's somebody that, that you have to do your due diligence on. I don't think they would trade up to get him, but, you really never know. I don't know Again, if Ray Farmer had his druthers, I don't think he would give up picks to go get a receiver. But they are taking a look at Cooper, and he won't be there at 12.
It's funny you bring that up, Mary Kay, because I did see a mock draft today that had the Browns moving up to get Amari Cooper. And it got me thinking, we've talked so much about them trading up to get a quarterback. What other positions or what other guys do you think they would consider maybe moving up to get?
You know what? I know they don't really want to move up to get anyone if they don't have to. But I do think that if you really felt strongly about a pass rusher, that's one position that I could see, you may be moving up for a little bit. I still think that they will try to trade up for Marcus Mariota. You guys know I've been saying that since back in December. And I just am working on a story right now that they have not set up a private workout with him, and they are not bringing him in as one of their 30 pre-draft visits, which I actually am very surprised about that. However, they've talked to him before, and obviously we know that Kevin O'Connell, their quarterbacks coach, knows him as well as anyone. So do not be fooled by the fact that they're not bringing him here for the visit and that they're not going to work him out privately, because that does not preclude them from trying to trade up.
All right, Mary Kay Cabot, our Browns beat reporter, joining us on Sports Insider. Mary Kay, thanks for the time.
Thank you, guys.
All right. It is an interesting discussion, I think, because we always talk about quarterback. They're going to trade up to get quarterback, and I told you about that mock draft today that has them trading up, giving up a first next year, in fact, to get Amari Cooper. Seems a little outlandish, but it's interesting. If there's a guy they really like that's not Marcus Mariota, if he goes number 2 or if he goes to the Jets or something like that, maybe they do make that move up.
Dan, I wish I was in Berea because I want to see that draft board, because the feeling that I get, and I think Mary Kay has that same feeling. The feeling that I get, you know how you put together a whole big board?
Yeah.
You just rank players regardless of position. I get a feeling that Marcus Mariota is very, very close to the top of that.
Probably.
Ray Farmer has liked him for a long, long time. Ray Farmer went the route of trying to find that innovative quarterback last year, trading up in the first round to get him that new age style with the athleticism and enough pocket presence to make some throws inside the pocket. And it's written on the walls in Berea. Written there on the walls. Find a franchise quarterback. That's the #1 stated goal of this organization. And they still don't have one.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting. We still got 2 weeks left
before
that April 30th draft. It's going to be a fun first round. We're going to have to pull you off of Cavs playoff coverage to do some of our draft stuff.
I'm guessing they will have swept by them.
Hopefully.
Maybe.
Come on, Cavs. Make this easy for
Maybe
all
go
of us.
5, possibly, and then they'll just wait for their next opponent.
All right, let's talk Indians and bring in our Indians beat reporter, Paul Hoynes. Hoynesy, how are you?
Good, guys. How are you doing today?
Good. All right, Hoynesy, Trevor Bauer, he's made 2 starts. He's 2-0. He's struck out 19 guys. He's walked 9. About as unconventional a guy right now as you could think of on the field and off the field. Are the Indians getting what they expected out of him right now?
I think so. I think probably they're getting a little bit more. This guy's been a work in progress since they acquired him. I think you're seeing a more mature guy on the mound. You're seeing a guy that's handling game situations much better, and the frustration of game situations. He's not, you don't see it on the mound now when he's upset or when he's mad at an umpire. I remember Chuck Finley would always say when you pitched for the Indians, he was a veteran guy at that time, and he goes, you can't let the other team see you sweat. You might be getting your head knocked off 11-0, but you have to stay the same on the mound all the time. And I think that's what we're seeing out of Bauer this year so far through 2 starts.
Well, the other guy, obviously, all eyes on Carlos Carrasco coming into this season, and now all eyes on him for another reason, Hoynesy. Sure seems like the Indians avoided something that could have been major with Cookie, huh?
Yeah, they were very fortunate. This is, he was. We were talking to him yesterday. The only thing he couldn't do was laugh and eat cookies. He was. He said his jaw hurt too much to giggle or to eat any kind of solid food, and that includes cookies, I guess. So, but he looked fine. He seemed, very, very secure in his own kind of self about starting Monday, and especially against the same team and Chicago, and against probably the same hitter, Melky Cabrera, that hit him. He'll be facing him Monday at U.S. Cellular Field. It's going to be interesting to see that next start. I mean, I've seen it before. I don't know if you guys remember David Huff, the left-hander who pitched for the Indians, got hit really hard in the head by A-Rod at Yankee Stadium. The ball ricocheted into right field for a double at Yankee Stadium, and he kind of got off the horse, got right back on the horse. He missed maybe a day or so, but made his next start. So these guys, these pitchers are tough guys, and they're really, really close to those hitters, man.
Paul, it's only April, but you look at what the Indians, they got swept by Detroit. They split with Chicago, and now they're going on this road trip. They've got 3 in Minnesota. They've got 3 more against Chicago. They've got 3 more in Detroit. You're playing division games in April. These are important. How big is this road trip for them?
Yeah, this is an important road trip. I mean, after they got done with Houston, they play 18 straight in the AL Central, and it hasn't begun too well. Maybe they catch a break in Minnesota. The Twins are struggling as much as the Indians for this weekend, these 3 games this weekend. But the Twins historically have always played the Indians hard. And then Chicago is they're kind of, the Indians play them all right. And then the Tigers are the Indians' big brother, man. They just smack them around. So they've got to play better. They've got to play better. They've got to hit left-handed pitching better. And most of all, they got to get healthy. They got to get Brantley back in the lineup and keep him in the lineup. I think that's why, he didn't play against the White Sox, coupled with this off day today. Maybe, he'll be ready to go. That back will be straightened out, and he'll be ready to go the rest of the way here.
I mean, is that the case, though, Hoynesy? Because, the Indians have been notorious for minimizing injuries, and then all of a sudden somebody goes on the 15-day DL, then he goes on the 60-day DL, and then all of a sudden the season's over. So Michael Brantley, been dealing with this thing for a little while now, bud.
Yeah, this is definitely, to me, it's a red flag. The Indians keep saying it's nothing but a strain. He's been looked at by experts, and this has been going on since the first day he came to camp. He had back problems, and they've lingered. And now, it depends who you listen to. Terry Francona said it really hasn't lingered; it's just come back a couple times. I think that's one and the same thing to me. So this, it's critical that he gets whatever help he needs, Brantley, and to get this back issue behind him, even if they have to put him on the DL. Which Francona and Chris Antonetti, the general manager, have said there's no need for that. We don't want to lose him for 12 days when we might 12 to 15 days or whatever it is, 15 days, when we maybe slow play him for 6 days. So that's the reasoning behind it. But as the longer it gets, the more their hand will be forced. There's a certain amount of time that you can have slow play a guy until you really have to. You can retroactive his injury, and he played Friday. So, you've got to. That's the date that they have to. They're playing with right now.
Hoynesy, you start listing position player guys that you don't want this team to lose, and Yan Gomes is going to be up on that list. Defensively, one of the better players on the team. He's a right-handed bat with some pop. He's going to be out 6 to 8 weeks. Roberto Perez is going to get a lot of the catcher duty. How much are they going to miss Gomes?
It's a devastating loss. Like you said, if you had to pick 1 or 2 guys that you couldn't lose on this club, position players, Brantley and Gomes would be at the top of the list. And Gomes, is a great handler of pitchers. I thought he was an all-star last year, and I really thought he'd make the all-star team this year. And like you said, the one thing besides catching and calling a good game and working with the pitchers, controlling the running game and framing pitches, he's a right-handed hitter with thump, and we gradually were seeing him move up in the lineup. and now he's gone for 6 to 8 weeks. And 6 to 8 weeks, probably is might be a conservative estimate, simply because of his position. He's a catcher, and they spend a lot of time squatting behind the plate. Your knee has to be, especially strong in that regard. So, this couldn't have come at a worse time for the Indians.
Brendan Moss not off to the greatest of starts, Hoynesy. Is this something that is just lingering with the hip injury? Is this just a slump that all ball players go through? Take me through this one.
Yeah, I think, I don't think the hip is coming into this because he played so well in spring training. This guy came back from the hip fast, hit 5 home runs in spring training, was running around making diving catches in the outfield. So I don't think it's the hip. I think it's, probably coming to a new team, trying to make a good impression, and facing so many left-handed pitchers. I don't think he bargained for this when he signed on for the Indians. I mean, they played 8 games and they faced 5 left-handed starters. I mean, you saw in the Chicago series, even when the lefties left, a left-handed starter left, they had 2 more left-handed relievers right behind them, and that's the way it's going to be until the Indians prove they can, neutralize lefties and then beat them.
All right, that is Paul Hoynes, our Indians beat reporter. Hoynesy, enjoy Minnesota.
All right, thanks, guys.
All right, Bud Shaw, help me out here. Do not say orange. Don't do it.
Well, I'll get to that. We're going to talk about something similar first, but I do have an opinion on that. Okay, 2 years in the planning, new Browns uniforms were unveiled at the Convention Center Tuesday, where one of the pre-reveal highlights was a man wearing a pumpkin on his head giving a muffled interview to one of the hosts of Cleveland Browns Daily. There are moments when we try to imagine what aliens would think if they were suddenly plopped down on Earth. That one immediately goes to the top of my list. I think the new uniforms caused excitement in the fan base, though I'm not sure the reaction there was always as glowing as it was in the media. As an example, a comment from Charger68 calls the uniforms bad pajamas, says the entire team looks like a root beer float, and that he's eaten better-looking Halloween candy. I won't go that far. I'll just say that when you masquerade as a pro football franchise for as long as the Browns have, new uniforms are bound to feel more like trick than treat. Our second uniform comment says it doesn't matter if the Browns wear underwear and capes as long as they win. Fedor, I would actually prefer that to the orange jerseys, but we'll talk about that later. In defense of the Browns and Nike, brown and orange isn't the easiest color scheme to work with. But I will agree with one thing. Like Boog Powell wearing red with the Indians in the mid-'70s, you'll only have to look at John Hughes once to conclude that a little orange goes a long way. Speaking of going a long way, the Cavs' march to a title begins Sunday against the Celtics. One commenter says beating Boston will be a nice little bit of revenge for '08 and the 2010 playoffs. Sorry, nice try. 2010 kept LeBron James from a chance to win a championship. A Cavs win would keep Kelly Olynyk, did I pronounce that right?
Olynyk.
Thank you, Olynyk. I didn't think I did. From the second round. That's not quite the same. In answer to that comment, Avante54 says the Celtics have as much chance of winning as Jimmy Hoffa's body has of washing up at Edgewater Park. I've been on the lakefront at various times over the years when they put out the signs warning pregnant women not to swim. Given what I've seen wash up at the lakefront, I'd say there's a much better chance of seeing Jimmy Hoffa doing the dead man's float than watching Jay Crowder, did I pronounce that correctly?
Got that one, bud.
Dancing on the scorer's table. And finally, and I know this is your favorite part when I say finally, the Indians got off to one of the longest losing streak since the last time SI put them on the cover. I'm sorry, but we'll need to see more evidence that the jinx is in full mode. Like an Indians pitcher getting hit in the jaw with a line drive, an MVP candidate left fielder being sidelined with a bad back, a silver slugger catcher gone for 2 months with a knee injury. Until I see that, I'm not convinced, guys.
All right, do you guys know about the symbolism in these Browns uniforms? Do you know all the symbolism involved? because the designers talked afterwards. I might have talked during the show too. I don't
Yeah,
know,
please enlighten us.
After, so okay.
By the way, I thought you were going with the symbolism of LeBron ending his Cavs career against the Celtics and beginning his new playoff run against the Celtics.
Symbolism.
Yeah, let's talk
and
more
the uniforms
jerseys
that you guys don't know about.
Yes.
See, because the stripes are all the same width now, and that's unifying. That symbolizes team unity. And it unifies the Cleveland with the Browns on the pants. And then the contrast stitching, this is what they actually said. The contrast stitching represents blue-collar, American-made quality that Cleveland is known for. Wow. Don't you feel inspired now?
So the reason Braylon didn't fit in here was because the stripes weren't uniform?
If they'd have had contrast stitching back in 2007, that team might have made the playoffs.
But you are out here trying to sell those jerseys, man, the way that Nike did on that night.
That's the story that I wrote down.
I mean, I don't know about you, but when I watch an NFL game, I'm not looking like, oh, man, do they have the contrast stitching there?
Those uniforms.
Oh, they do. All right, those are my new favorites.
I like those, but the chainmail numbering, that really does it for me. It represents a pillar of strength. That's something else they
Chris,
said.
I know you weren't really taken with the Cleveland across the thing. The thing that's stuck out to me really was the Browns on the pants.
You don't like that?
No, it had kind of this like softball team feel to it.
Yeah.
Like,
see, that's what I felt about Cleveland on the front, guys. I felt like Cleveland on the front was very high school.
I can live with that. I can live with the Cleveland on the front. I don't love it, but yeah, the Browns on the pants was a little strange.
well, as an emailer pointed out to me yesterday, Cleveland on the front was said to be unique in the NFL, and he's like, of course, all the other teams play in another city, so why wouldn't it be unique?
Or the other teams don't want that on the
People
front.
had their fun with it. I would say this, it was an upgrade, I think, over what they were wearing. Other than that, I wasn't blown away by it, and I wasn't, it didn't get the reaction that the logo, the helmet got.
We know what this team, we know what this organization, we know that this franchise can screw things up.
Yeah.
And they didn't do that with these uniforms. I mean, not everybody's going to love them, but they're fine. I mean, they aren't atrocious. You're not going to watch them play every Sunday and be like, oh my God, these uniforms
I think we
are
have just happened on the new slogan for 2015.
They're not atrocious.
Cleveland Browns, we're not atrocious.
That's where they are.
I meant to ask Mary Kay, and I'm very upset that I did not ask Mary Kay this question. It was the $1 million question. How did they pick the 9 players to model the uniforms?
The 9 guys who were in town.
Because if you're,
yes, the 9
if you're
guys who
Josh
answered their
McCown,
phones.
you were brought here to be at the top of the quarterback depth chart, maybe take this team to 8 wins, if you're lucky. And you got Taylor Gabriel out there, the number 4 wide receiver, who's strutting his stuff in a uniform, and Josh McCown, the starting quarterback, is back home.
Well, there's a theory, too, that they put the name on the front so Bo would know which airport to fly into. I mean, come on now. He and Hartline's at least got local connections, but how'd they pick Bo to do this?
Again, he was in town and he answered his phone.
I thought you were going to go with they put Cleveland on the front so that Josh McCown had another identifier of who to throw the ball to.
McCown doesn't care about starting. He doesn't care. He didn't come here to start. He didn't come here to model uniforms.
He's here because he gets along.
Yeah,
he can play well with others.
All right. Sports Insider in the books. Our thanks to Chris Haynes, whose MVP choice just went up at cleveland.com/Cavs.
So did mine. You don't want to promote mine?
That was like hours ago. That's old news.
It's also up there, cleveland.com/Cavs.
Chris Haynes, Mary Kay Cabot, who likes orange jerseys. I don't get it. I'll have to have a talk with her about that. And then Paul Hoynes, talking Indians. And also Bud Shaw. He's Chris Fedor. I'm Dan Labbe. Thanks for watching.